Christiania, a silent comic written by 13-year-old Abby Behe, is a take on the ills of social media by someone who has never lived in a world without online culture. But silent comics can be a storytelling challenge. How did artist Taka do on getting the story across? Jason and I give our critique of Christiania after this.
I crave superheroic content. Let's see what's on.
I want you to tell all your friends about me.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
Nah, I don't think so.
I'm Batman.
Not really what I'm looking for.
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman.
Ugh, absolutely not.
This is Robin the Boy Wonder. I'm Batman.
Aha, now that's more like it.
If you see Adam West as the one true Batman, then this is the podcast for you. Tune in every other Thursday on your favorite podcast source to hear Tim and Paul discuss the 1966 series and everything connected with it. What's the podcast called?
To the Batpoles. To the Batpoles. To the Batpoles.
This is Tim.
This is Jason.
And this is Critiquing Comics. Welcome to Critiquing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo with Jason in snowy Portland.
Yeah. Or it might be Freetown. I'm not sure. I think that's where this book takes place. I am delightful. Thank you.
Okay, that's good. So, we got an email from a 13-year-old girl named, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Abby Behe. I gather that she is the writer, not the artist.
Right. I think the artist is not 13.
No. So it's published by a company called Marcosia, and there's a press release about it. It mentions actually 3 artists, although later on it singles out one of them named Taka. I guess he's kind of the main artist. I'm not sure what Thomas Moselle and Thomas John did, actually, but Thomas John, by the way, is Abby's father. I heard from him also.
Well, there could be flatters. I can tell you what they didn't do. They didn't letter the book.
No, because it's a silent comic.
Yeah. But they could have helped with the colors. I mean, this is... We'll talk about it, but it is 25 double-page spreads. So there's a lot of art to cover here. Mm-hmm. I mean, they could have been 22 by the time this was done if one artist had done it. Okay, so it is a silent book about a young lady named Catherine. Now, I'm going to...
Christiania is the title of the book, and I guess that's her name, Christiania.
Christiania. Thank you. You're correct. Okay, so, like as we said, there are no words in this book. Which is a bit of a culture shock from reading so many comic books. But I do teach at an art school, and I do think this is some middle ground between art book and narrative storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be a comic. I'm not saying it's not a comic, but I feel like this has
that's sequential art. So
sequential paintings, yeah. It has a foot in that world. So the story... I'll be honest with you. I had to read this multiple times. Mm-hmm. And every time I flip through it, I get another piece of this story in the puzzle.
Yeah.
Which isn't to say that's a bad thing, right? Many comic books you read once and you put down and you forget and you never look at them again because you don't have to. Mm-hmm. This is more of an experience, I think, than it is a narrative. Mm. So we have to go through this. And the clues are very, very, very subtle.
Yes.
It does not hold your hand as it moves you through this story. So as I can tell it, thank you for the name check, it's Christiania. She is the daughter of a skinhead. Mm-hmm. The townspeople push the skinheads out. She goes to live with her grandmother, who then passes away.
Yeah.
Christiania hides away and I believe, is now self-sufficient, living on her own. And she, unlike many people that could be in this situation, instead of turning outward against the world and being angry, she is serving her community. And she is, with care and love, delivering vegetables to people in the community on a little push cart. As she gets older, she's still doing this and not living the life of a carefree child like everybody else around her. And they are ostracizing her and taking her picture and making her feel othered because she really didn't have a childhood. And this goes on as she ages pretty rapidly in the beginning part of this story. She's still being hassled by people and their cell phones. And then she gets a job working with an ambulance company.
Okay, yeah, so...
Still serving the community. And also, we're not spoiling anything. This is not... I don't really think this is a book that can be spoiled.
No.
Yeah, her partner in this endeavor seems to be grifting organs to people, selling organs on the side, which then inspires her to do the same thing, but for good.
Maybe you got more out of that part than I did. I mean, all of a sudden she's sitting in this ambulance with Soul Patch Guy, and he's pointing at his phone. And by the way, this story takes place in Copenhagen, and for some reason the ambulance is parked in front of the Tivoli Gardens amusement park, which I had to look up. And she looks kind of angry, which I couldn't figure out why.
Well, because he's on his phone and he's pointing out this awful thing on the phone that's going on, which will become a subplot that builds into the main plot. She's all like, "Put the phone away. We're here to help people." She is, there to help people, serve her community. God knows why after what she's been through, but she's a good-hearted person. And then she takes drastic means. She sees people moving organs and selling them, so then she starts, I'm assuming, stealing them and delivering them for good. And then her and her cart get into an accident, and she gets arrested. And then she's sent to a halfway home, I believe, some sort of prison in the country, where her doctor or a nurse poisons her, puts it online to score points in this game where you take awful pictures and you score points.
There's this kind of social media site called Contraband.
Right. And then her former ENT partner is trying to help her, but the nurse from the halfway home is scaring him away, and he can tell she has bad intent. And then I get a little bit lost towards the end. I think the nurse is still taking pictures. I think time has passed because the nurse's hair has grown longer. She looks a lot like the main character, which can be... Yeah,
I got really confused.
Really
I couldn't even tell how many dark-haired women there were in this story. I thought there were 3 for a long time, but...
I did too, but there's just 2. So her hair grows out, but then she cuts her hair short again to look like Christiania, and then she's trying to poison her again in the car, and the EMT person saves her.
How did they get in the car together? It's not explained.
And then at the end, I think she's the big winner because her poisoning post was the number 1. Okay, that is the entire plot of the book, and I had to read it. Honestly, I spent an hour like, what did I miss? So in some ways, it's a fun little puzzle. In some ways, I kind of appreciate that this is a detail book. These illustrations are not done accidentally, but it is challenging to follow.
Mm-hmm. And then I read the blurb on the back cover, and I was like, oh, and that's not a good sign. If the book itself is not giving you this information, the back cover is like actually giving you the story, and then it makes a little bit more sense. And also the press release explains some things that I didn't get from the book.
Yeah, so the press release and the back cover are pretty critical to understanding this story.
Yes.
Absolutely critical.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure if... I think the press release does say something about... It's all there if you kind of look really carefully at the pictures, but I don't know. I felt like there was some storytelling skill that was missing in this book, in the art.
Well, I think the art is fantastic. Actually, I really
Well,
like
yeah, I
the
mean,
art.
as drawings, or they seem to be computer generated drawings to some extent. I mean, it looks good. It's just the storytelling that I struggled with.
The storytelling is at arm's length. You really have to piece it together. And when I got to that back cover, my jaw hit the floor. I was like, where was that book?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what happened? And then when I read the press release, I was like, I still haven't read that book either. I think as a
thanks for telling me.
Okay, but here's the thing. As a concept, I think the concept is really, really strong.
Mm-hmm.
I think the idea that there's an app out there rating people are putting themselves in danger and taking these crazy risks to take the most horrible picture they can and score points, some sort of social status points. I think that's really, really cool. There's a lot of stuff in here that the whole beginning part, like who she is as a character and why she gets drawn into this particular plot is a bit, I have to really, really, really think about why that is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think someone that's been shying away from social media and trying to avoid it, the trappings of it, and then becoming a sensation, it's probably the worst kind of hell, right? They always say you should do the worst things you can to your character. And I think if you're a private person, you just want to help people, and now you've become this thing that's a mockery of that, of hurting people. That's a really good conflict, actually. Once I said it out loud, that makes a lot of sense. But this is a thinker of a book.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to really piece together the in-between images in your mind.
Yeah, for sure. Like when we go to that point where apparently it's her father who has died.
What?
And there's a funeral, and there's a bald guy in a casket. And
right.
It's a weird page because it looks like they're in an empty church, but there are all these guys on motorcycles. And like, why do you have all these motorcycles inside a building? And the woman, who I guess is the same woman who poisoned Christiania, is taking a picture with her phone. And like you said, maybe this is supposed to be sometime in the future because she looks older and her hair's grown out. But it's a huge leap from the previous page.
And having two characters with the dark hair, I don't get it.
Needed some blondes in this book. I mean, it's Denmark. Where are the blondes?
Why does she's making herself look like Christiania? And I'm sorry if I'm saying that name wrong over and over, but to what end? She's trying to poison her again at the end. I can't follow it. I don't know why she wants to look like her. Is it because of when she gets killed, she looks like her? It could be Christiania as death, but that's not what on the last page. That's not the image. That's the most famous one. Like if we got to the last page and the image was of the car wreck of the imposter. It's honestly, it may come to me like 2 a.m. I may jump up out of bed and be like, I get it. But as storytelling goes, and I don't want to harp on the fact that this was written by a 13-year-old. I don't want to hold that against them because the concept is really strong. And it's as good or better than things I've read by full-grown adults. That's not really. I'm not giving them a pass because of their age. I just think there's a page where the EMT he's gotten a map and he's drawn out something. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it's getting someone from the Mediterranean to Western Italy where he gets kicked out of somebody's business and then going to France and something and then going to Germany and having surgery. But okay. Yeah, it's not very clear exactly what's going on there. And she still looks angry.
Right, because that's not serving the community, and she's gesturing towards the box. The body language in here is really, it's like silent film. They really, because there's no dialogue, they really over-exaggerate the facial characteristics, like a character on their knees hugging someone in gratitude, which I think works. I think I know they wanted to do a silent piece, but it is strenuous to follow.
Yeah. An interesting bit that I got from the press release, quoting here, the book's artist Taka created wordless double-page spreads to emulate the vivid multi-character street art created on the walls throughout Freetown, which is within Copenhagen, an artistic area. A stark contrast to rapid-fire content streams flowing in the dark digital world it seeks to explore. And we do see a lot of graffiti on the walls within the story's environment.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. It's just it would be nice if that came through a little bit more without having to read the press release.
And this could be we're just of a different culture. It's like it took me a few reads to realize the house in the country was prison.
Yeah,
or a punishment. I thought she was helping people again. And I do like the art, and I do think that's a really solid approach. But what happens between illustrations, what would normally be the gutter in a comic, right? The time elapsing, it's almost too much. Like what makes you think that's her father in the casket? The bad lady's father,
because
the bad dark-haired lady.
Well, let's see. Because he's bald, and the lady has pictures of like young Christiania and her parents in that panel where she's cutting her own hair. So it seems like she's been tracking Christiania and her parents.
Is that her sister? Does she have a sister?
Or I had wondered if it was her mom, actually. Because in the early pages, we don't really get a good look at her mom, so it's hard to tell what she looks like, even.
And what is with the skinheads and Uzis and the bike? Like, I just don't understand the culture of what's going on. I'm really curious. It lends itself to great imagery.
And those are really kind of small rifles that they have.
Well, I'm not a gun guy.
Me neither. But they just looked a little
shot by them either.
Looked a little understated to me, but not from America. Where anyway,
we like it big. We like our guns big. There is a nice touch with the art. For example, when the main character is poisoned, and everything in the illustration is sort of bending. And the first time I read it, I didn't realize she was being poisoned until later, and I went back and thought, oh, that's sort of interesting. We're sort of seeing the world the way she sees the world in this moment, which I think it's always great when you could have empathy for your main character. If the illustrations tell you how to feel through them. Yeah. But I don't, there is something going on with the bad lady that I don't get.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like what this book kind of suffers from is a situation where you know what the story is as you're making it, but you maybe didn't test it out with enough people who were not associated with the project to say, what? I don't get what's happening here. What? But you know everything that's there, so you think it's clear because it's in your brain. But then you get it out in the world and it doesn't get everything across that it needs to.
Right. And like I said, the more times I read this, the more satisfying it is, but it is it is a bit of a puzzle to put together.
So yeah, it's kind of too bad because I don't think the problem is Abi's problem at all. It's the art problem, storytelling problem, not the story itself.
Well, how they chose to tell that story is a bit cold. It is a bit distant without dialogue. So it's harder to put yourself in the mindset of a character when you don't know how they feel about things, except for her disdain for bad things. And the ending, I don't know how to feel about the ending. I really don't know what it means.
Are they throwing a smartphone in the lake? It looks like.
Oh my God, you're right. That is what's happening.
But
you're right.
Why? Whose phone? Is that the bad lady's phone? Is that Christiana's own phone?
I don't know. This is what I mean. Like, I understand you want to do a silent piece, and I applaud that. I mean, I'm not going to try and fix this. I think maybe I love the double page spread. I love that it emulates street art and murals. Once you said that, it totally clicked into place. But maybe if there were single page, splash page images done in this style, you could have done twice as much story and still kind of kept the silent, big illustration portions of it.
Yeah, I mean, even a few narration boxes would have made a big difference, I think.
Yeah, And it is in English, what we're seeing here. Sometimes when I see books that are silent, I think, oh, this is great because it doesn't have to be translated for other languages.
Yeah.
And maybe I don't know. I want to know the story. Like, I really like the concept. I really like the idea. I think I wanted more. Let me put it that way. I wanted more. And this rushes through story beats of something at a really high level that I would have liked to have spent more time in, because I do think it's a great idea and a great story world. And when you first, okay, now I'm going to talk about the age of the character, age of the writer. When you first told me that, I was all like, should I be jealous of a 13-year-old? And then I was like, no, because a 13-year-old who grew up with social media, right, is going to have a take on the material that you and I are not going to have.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always what I want, is a fresh take on something, and not another boomer or middle-aged person telling me that social media is bad. Even I've written those things. So I really appreciate that this is coming from somebody who's only known social media, and it has this disdain for it and can see the dark side of it already. I think that's something to applaud. And obviously they're going to have a great career. So no, I am not jealous, because I didn't want to tell this story. And I think only this author could tell this story.
I see from the press release that she's got another book coming out later this year called Charlie Dirtbags. And this also has to do with this contraband website. So I guess it's kind of another take on the ills of social media, maybe.
Will that one have words, I guess is the question. Or if it's another painted book, because I'd be curious to know what their dialogue sounds like. Just as one writer to another, like how they use language. And they're from, just especially when people have a more global experience or background. I know this writer has moved across the world.
Yeah, apparently she's got British and Canadian background and lives in London. I'm not sure how the story ended up set in Copenhagen.
Why not?
Yeah, I mean, apparently she spent some time there.
I think I'm not tired of books in Copenhagen.
No.
I think a unique environment, like, I don't know if she got it right, but it looks great. I just think that worldview I like that. I like that we're getting books from internationals. So keep sending us your books. Even though we didn't love this one, it was really cracking the narrative that I think was, towards the end, was challenging. But I think it's a really noble effort.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. And they should do more in this world and then collect them all in a big book that people can marinate in a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Okay. So, if you would like us to critique your comic, we'll be nice, honest.
We're nice and honest. I just feel I just want to applaud the effort, the monumental effort, and the interesting viewpoint into here, and letting me thank you, Tim, for letting me walk through the plot of this, because I've been thinking about, am I getting this right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what does it feel like to be the daughter of a skinhead? Are they skinheads? Are they racist skinheads? I don't know. I don't know enough about Danish skinheads.
Yeah, they're apparently a motorcycle gang. I don't know what kind of ideology they might have, but
are they the motorcycle gang, or is it a different group? Do you know what I mean? Like, I am lost.
Well,
I love the way it looks.
They all have motorcycles at the funeral, so I guess. Well, and the well, okay, so.
But are those skinheads at the funeral? Or are they just old people?
So I put that blurb from the back cover in my notes, actually. I think I'll just read it here. Okay, we thought we were going to end, but we're not. A vibrant spirit liberated by strong community, she's grown resilient to a mainstream culture dominated by influencers seeking superficial social status. This is Christiania.
Got it. That's in there. I got that. So far, I'm on board, Tim. I've read that book.
She's endured hard drug dealers, criminal bike gang dominance, and even police crackdowns on her underground life-saving therapies. Now, was that a police crackdown in that panel where she was...
She got caught transporting organs on a bicycle. I don't know that that's a life-saving therapy. It's a life-saving maneuver. See, that right now the train is coming off the tracks, what you just said. Okay, keep going.
But she wasn't prepared for the malicious attack from this fame-chasing dark web outsider whose ambition is to control and then destroy Christiania and everything she represents.
Okay, that I didn't... The first 5 times I read the book, I didn't see that. And now I realize that's the evil nurse lady who looks just like her, is the dark web outsider.
Yes.
And that is to destroy Christina and everything she represents, because Christina is helping the environment, helping the community through good deeds, and this other lady is hurting people for personal gain. Did I get that right? I think I got that right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's coming more into focus.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Look,
yeah.
it's just too smart. It's just too smart for you and I.
I mean, it's good to have a book that you need to think about and read multiple times, but it's just kind of a problem when you have to get some of the information from the back cover blurb and the press release.
Yeah, there is thinking about it. There's a ponderous book, and then there's a befuddling approach. Mm-hmm. And so this book is equally great and befuddling.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So I give it 5 stars and 2.5 at the same time.
Okay. Okay, are we done?
Yeah, they were done.
Okay, so listeners, if you'd like us to critique your comics, send a PDF or a link to mail@deconstructingcomics.com, and we'll read it and talk about it here. So thanks for listening, and thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Tim.
There's a link to the Christiania page of contrabandgraphicnovel.com in the show notes. You can see a few of the pages from the book. You can help the Deconstructing Comics family of podcasts by joining us on Patreon at patreon.com/deconcomics, and go to deconstructingcomics.com to connect to us on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, to shop on Amazon to support the show, and to find links to subscribe to the podcast. Our theme is from bensound.com. Next week on Deconstructing Comics, Kumar and I tackle a memoir graphic novel dealing with being transsexual and having dissociative identity disorder. It's the quickest 900-page read available. The book is The Third Person by Emma Grove, and we'll talk about it here next week. Till then, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Critiquing Comics.